Hello, I'm Nima Rajan, and welcome to Northwest Newsweek. A big announcement on Thursday from the Ford government regarding a new transmission line in this region. Energy Minister Greg Rickford has decided that NextBridge will get the contract to build the $700 million east-west tie from Thunder Bay to Wawa. Now, this move overrides the Ontario Energy Board, which had accepted bids from both NextBridge and Hydro One for the project. Ben Nesbitt reports.
After a grueling 5.5-year process, NextBridge has officially been awarded the rights to construct the 450-kilometer transmission line from Thunder Bay to Wawa. After originally being selected back in 2013, the Ontario Energy Board allowed Hydro One to submit a competing bid last year with their Lake Superior Link proposal. And after a long, drawn-out bidding process and lobbying from First Nations to stick with the original plan, Energy Minister Greg Rickford announced that NextBridge will build the east-west tie. He says it was the company's attention to detail and First Nations ties that was the deciding factor.
The completeness of it, how thorough their relationships were with Indigenous communities, how widely respected the municipalities and Indigenous communities had for their partners that form NextBridge. Project
Director for NextBridge, Jennifer Tidmarsh, says it's a relief to finally get things rolling.
It's so exciting. We had so many people trained who were just waiting, and so now we have people that were trained through Confederation College programs, and our general contractor, Ballard, is poised and ready to start getting people employed.
NextBridge has partnerships with 6 different First Nations communities along the transmission line, and over 200 jobs will be created for Indigenous people, much to the delight of leaders Peter Collins and Matt Dupuis.
Exciting times for them and great opportunities for them to get some trades, opportunities for the contractors in our communities, and to build a strong economy for our members.
I know that Minister Rickford was really working hard and saying that we're not going to drag this process out. We got to make decisions fast, and they have. They lived up to that. So I'm very pleased, shockingly surprised, and very happy about it.
The co-chair of Northwest Energy Task Force, Larry Hebert, says getting the project moving as soon as possible was very important to ensure a reliable energy supply in the region.
The Energy Task Force supported NextBridge because they thought they had a good plan, and so we're pleased to see that and hope it's going to really help develop this area, particularly in the mining and forest industries.
Hydro One has released a statement saying while they're disappointed with the outcome, they would like to thank everyone who welcomed their proposal over the last year. While NextBridge still awaits their leave for construction, the estimated 18-month construction process could begin this spring. Ben Nesbitt, TBT News.
Reaction to the decision by the province on the east-west tie is also coming in from many of the municipalities along the North Shore, as each town stands to benefit in some way, shape, or form from the project. Carmen Wong reports.
Municipal representatives across the North Shore are expressing their happiness and relief over Thursday's announcement from Energy Minister Greg Rickford regarding the province's decision designating NextBridge as its preference to construct a transmission line from Thunder Bay to Wawa. Nipissing Councillor James Fold says his community has always been supportive of both Hydro One and NextBridge, only that they wanted to see the project moving forward.
This sounds like it's going to be an announcement where things are going to start moving. We can see the jobs being created. We can see the economic opportunities of construction workers being within our communities and everything that comes with that.
Scriber Mayor Dave Hamilton says he and many others were surprised at Hydro One's decision to step into the process last year, so late into the project's development.
And they said they could save all this money when actually they still didn't have approval to go through Puckasaw, which was supposed to be the biggest cost savings. So I think we're all a little disturbed that the process has been delayed.
But Hamilton says with the province's intervention, there are going to be many happy people across the region, including Terrace Bay Mayor Jody Davis. He says the decision gives his community a better idea of the opportunities available.
In our case here, we've had plans with NextBridge for them to build a marshalling yard and area in Terrace Bay for the duration of the contract, and we had no guarantees from Hydro One what they were going to do. So it was a bit of a mystery what Hydro One was doing. So NextBridge has spent a lot of time and energy, so we're happy a decision has been made.
Carmen Wong, TVT News.
A young murder suspect who made national headlines after spending more than 4 years in solitary confinement at the Thunder Bay Jail will not stand for trial for first-degree murder. 26-year-old Adam Capay was granted a stay of the charge at the city courthouse on Monday. Alana Pickrell reports.
Adam Capay walked out of the Thunder Bay courthouse as essentially a free man after spending almost 7 years in pretrial custody. The 26-year-old was surrounded by family members as he left the courtroom where Justice Jean Frageau ruled that Capay will not stand trial for his alleged role in the 2012 stabbing death of a fellow inmate at the Thunder Bay Correctional Center. 35-year-old Sherman Quisses died in hospital one day after the fatal incident at the facility on Highway 61, where the two men were inmates. Capay was just 19 years old at the time. He later made national headlines when it was made clear he spent over 4 years straight in solitary confinement while he awaited his trial. He was kept in segregation up to 23 hours per day in a plexiglass cell with lights always on. In 2017, Capay's lawyers argued that his rights were violated under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and asked for a stay of the first-degree murder charge. Nearly 2 years after that request was made, Justice Frageau announced his decision here to grant the stay and allow Capay to be set free. There is a wide-ranging publication ban in place on the reasons behind Frageau's decision, along with all the evidence as well as reaction from the parties involved. That ban will remain in place until February 27th for an appeal period, at which point those details can be made public. Alana Pickrell, TVT News.
Reaction is pouring in regarding the release of Adam Capay and the stay of the murder charges against him. The chief of the First Nation where the victim was from says the court ruling re-victimizes the family. The 26-year-old from Lac Seul First Nation walked out of the courthouse Monday essentially a free man. The ruling came 6.5 years after the fatal incident. 34-year-old Sherman Quisses died in hospital one day after he was stabbed in the throat while the two men were inmates at the Thunder Bay Correctional Center. Nescantiga Chief Wayne Muniaz issued a statement saying the entire community and Quisses' family have fought for justice since the murder in 2012, and they are very disappointed in that the case won't even go to trial. The judge granted the stay after finding that Capay's rights were violated under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms during his pre-trial incarceration. Capay's lawyers also released a statement saying that they are very relieved and hope the decision sends a strong message that what happened to Adam is completely unacceptable in our society. There's a publication ban in effect during the appeal period until February 27th regarding the reasons for the ruling along with the evidence. 2 weeks after declaring a state of emergency, help is on the way for the northern community of Cat Lake. Indigenous Services Minister Seamus O'Regan says senior ministry officials met with community members earlier this week to develop both short-term and long-term plans to deal with the housing crisis in the community. Band officials declared the state of emergency due to excessive mold and structural issues with a large number of homes in Cat Lake, which were causing health problems for residents. A new hospital looms on the horizon for the city of Kenora and the surrounding area. The province recently announced its approval of the planning phase of an all-nations hospital. It would mean more options for treatment and more space to accommodate the cultural practices of many residents in that part of the Northwest. Adam Riley has the details.
Hospitals only have a certain life. We've extended this one quite long. But now we really need to bring everything up to standard.
The Lake of the Woods District Hospital has seen 6 expansions since the 1930s, according to CEO Ray Reset. But now a new facility is needed in order to provide modern care to patients in the Kenora District. 2 years ago, the province announced $2.5 million for a planning study to replace the building. And just recently, the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care announced it had approved the planning of an all-nations hospital. Reset says an all-nations hospital is like a Catholic hospital, except considerations are made for First Nation patients.
It would be like a normal hospital, but they would have certain elements that they value, such as a place to smudge. There would be some ceremonial space for things that are important to them.
Reset says a working example of an all-nations model is the Meno Yawin Health Center in Sioux Lookout, which has a complement of 60 beds and integrates First Nations culture both into the design and the services available at the facility. Kenora Rainy River MPP Greg Rickford is praising the decision by the ministry.
It's long overdue. This hospital is functionally obsolete, and so it needs to be modernized, and we need a more coordinated effort with the surrounding communities.
However, he has some choice words regarding a lack of partnership with the federal government.
I think our biggest concern right now in Kenora is that the Member of Parliament who originally promised a new facility could never have done that, but the problem is the federal government is nowhere to be seen on their contributions to help us get there.
Kenora MP Bob Nault says the feds will get on board, but the planning phase, which the province has announced, must be completed to determine the level of support.
Once we get a better understanding of how this is all going to roll out jurisdictionally, and if this is going to be First Nations actively part of the healthcare system, I can't see any reason why the federal government won't do what it's done in Sioux Lookout in Kenora as well.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
Coming up after the break, changes to the labor code are coming in just in time before the 2019 federal election. With the federal election on the horizon, the current government is trying to turn their promises into a reality. Back in November, Minister Patty Hajdu announced the federal government's plans to revamp the Canada Labour Code. Earlier this week, she said employees all across the country could see changes as soon as this summer.
We were updating the Canada Labour Code to make sure that people had things like paid leave, paid sick days, breaks on the job, all kinds of different things that would actually bring the modernize the Labour Code and bring it into modern day times.
Hajdu says the modernization was deemed to be part of the 2018 budget, and therefore it was able to pass through much more quickly. OPP in Kenora have shut down an alleged pot store in that community. A 66-year-old man and a 48-year-old woman have been charged with possession of cannabis for the purpose of selling. Police executed a search warrant yesterday at Winnipeg River Naturals. Officers seized 110 grams of suspected cannabis, 20 spray canisters, and 5 THC dropper vials. OPP say their enforcement strategy includes removing illegal storefronts and eliminating the illegal cannabis supply. It's been less than a month since the merger between Kenora Hydro and Thunder Bay Hydro became official, creating a new utility, Synergy North. It was a move aimed at keeping costs low for both the company and its customers. However, 2 of the remaining 3 local utilities in the region aren't jumping to get on board just yet. Adam Riley has the story.
3 weeks ago, Kenora Hydro and Thunder Bay Hydro ceased to exist and merged to become Synergy North. This leaves only 3 utilities in the Northwest solely owned by their municipalities, out of a roster that used to include communities like Dryden, Terrace Bay, and Rainy River. While the benefits to the merger look good, some of the remaining utilities in the region aren't willing to merge with Synergy North or others at this time. Atikokan Mayor Dennis Brown, who also sits on the board for Atikokan Hydro, says he doesn't want his community to lose its autonomy on decisions made which could affect employees and ratepayers.
The people there are doing great work. There's 7 employees. 4 on the outside and 3 on the inside, and they're serving the community well. And we have a say in what happens, and we want to keep it that way. And the people of Atikokan seem to be happy, and I know the council certainly is.
Sioux Lookout Mayor Doug Lawrence shares similar concerns to Brown. He says the municipality would give the discussion of a merger some serious thought, but it's not something planned for the immediate future.
For us to merge or amalgamate with another, we would have to consider that very carefully. I'm sure there's benefits, but there may be some cost to that too, whether it be local employment or local service, speed of local service, understanding of the needs here. We're very far away from Thunder Bay or Kenora.
Lawrence says he wants to advocate for lower power rates in the north due to his community's heavy dependence on electricity, as Sioux Lookout lacks access to a natural gas pipeline for heating. Ontario Energy Minister and Kenora Rainy River MPP Greg Rickford says the province, while always looking for efficiencies, isn't in the business of having utilities merge under its direction.
In certain situations, it is the right thing to do. We've seen this in the telecom industry. We see it sometimes in policing. There are efficiencies to be gained from it, and it certainly helps us as a province become, and the energy sector become more sleek and nimble. And in this particular instance, Kenora and Thunder Bay thought it was the right thing to do, and we fully supported that.
Rickford says he doesn't suspect the cost savings predicted by the merger will make the 12% his ministry is trying to cut hydro rates by, but he is supportive of utilities who consolidate their agencies and reduce operational costs. Adam Riley, TBT News.
The Thunder Bay Health Coalition is raising a red flag about the increase in violent incidents within Ontario long-term facilities. The provincial coalition recently conducted an investigative report, and their findings were quite disturbing. Local officials blame it on a decline in support and medical care. Ben Nesbitt has more.
The Ontario Health Coalition made a stop in Thunder Bay as part of their province-wide tour to summarize the findings of a report on the issues regarding long-term care facilities. The report, known as Situation Critical, states that 27 homicides have occurred in Ontario seniors' homes over the past 5 years, a number 7 times higher than that of the largest cities in the country. While none of the homicides have occurred in the Northwest region, acts of violence are still occurring, and the chair of the Thunder Bay Health Coalition, Jules Tupker, attributes it to a lack of staff.
There's just not enough people. People are getting burnt out because of the work that they have to do. And the reason that they have to do the work is because the workload is so much more now than it was 15, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. The people in long-term care are a lot heavier to work with. There's just so much. The acuity is amazing. They're very, very hard to work with because they're illnesses and they just don't get around too much, and it becomes a real problem.
Due to the lack of personal support workers, 64 beds were left empty here at Hogarth Riverview, and over 33,000 people across the province remain on waiting lists. But even for those on the inside, the lack of care and medical support has families desperately hoping that this report will open the eyes of those in power.
Something has to happen. We need more staff. There needs to be more PSWs on the floor at all times, not just 4-hour shift workers. The ratio has to be way better because residents are left on their own in front of the TV. When there's nowhere else to put them, they just go and stack them in front of the TV, tilt them back, and they'll spend 4 hours from 1 o'clock till 5.
The report was concluded with recommendations which included an enforced minimum care standard of 4 hours a day per resident, as well as improve training and behavioral supports in all Ontario LTC homes. Ben Nesbitt, TBT News.
Ontario's progressive Conservative government is planning to create a super agency with a mandate to privatize healthcare. That's according to an internal government document obtained by the NDP. Leader Andrea Horwath showed the document to reporters this week.
Doug Ford plows ahead with this healthcare privatization bill. He has got one hell of a fight on his hands, not just from the official opposition, but from the people of this province.
Horwath says the document is a piece of legislation the PC government is working on. She says it includes plans to farm out healthcare services to for-profit businesses. Horwath accused Premier Doug Ford of hiding this government intention and says that he isn't being honest with Ontarians about his plans for the province's healthcare system. Coming up next, the rocks are flying down the ice in Nipigon as the community hosts the 2019 Northern Men's and Women's Curling Playdowns. This week's freezing conditions have residents across the Northwest wishing to be in warmer climates. But in Nipigon, residents have been spending hours inside the town's curling club. That was the place to be this week for curling fans as the Northern Men's and Women's Curling Playdowns came to town. It's an event which is bringing a boost to a normally quiet town during this time of year. Tyler Kelleher reports.
Curling icons Krista McCarville, Brad Jacobs, and many more have descended upon the town of Nipigon for the 2019 Northern Men's and Women's Curling Playdowns, a 5-day competition which is helping melt the winter blues. Nipigon councillor James Fold says the area has a history of curling, with his community being a hub for the sport.
You got people like Al Hackner that actually were born and raised here. He's world champion. We got Heather Houston from Red Rock, world champion. So I think Curl Northwest there, they recognize Nipigon as being a good curling hub, being able to attract fans to come out and watch.
Foles says the event, like others, really gives an economic boost to the town, especially now during the winter months. Organizer Paul Ertl says this isn't the first time Nipigon has seen this level of curling.
We've held this event in the arena twice before, in 2006 and in 2013. And as well, we've held many provincial championships in our curling club as well. But just mentioning the caliber of the curling, like you mentioned, You look at the field we have this year, and we've got university champions, provincial champions, Olympic champions, and even world champions curling in this event. So it's a great caliber of curlers.
Ertl says this year the organizing committee was very surprised to see the tournament come back to Nipigon, but Folds has an idea as to why his community was chosen.
Normally they go to the bigger centers, but I think they recognize that they have to get it into the smaller rural communities so that curling itself will keep on growing. And right now it's kind of at it's stagnant. We're trying to promote it more.
Tyler Kelleher, TBT News.
The launch of a new program by the Northern Policy Institute means a number of groups in the Northwest could have access to high-end analytical skills for a more affordable price. Membership in the Northern Analysts Cooperative is open to municipalities, Indigenous communities, or businesses of any size for services ranging from tax rates to a community profile. Policy Institute CEO Charles Sirtwill says by partnering with other communities or utilizing a minimal amount of service, those who need analytical expertise can pay for exactly what they need.
Very tough to encourage or to attract someone with master's level or even PhD level analytical skills. They're more inclined to go where the large centers are, where big government offices are, where large national institutions are. And so in many cases, it's not only a budget constraint, it's also, do we have enough work to keep this person busy?
Membership costs range from $200 to $4,000. Analysts will be working out of the NPI offices in Thunder Bay and Sudbury. And that's all for this episode of Northwest Newsweek. I'm Nima Rajan. Take care.